The first time I ever came to Germany was in 2014, and when I came back, quite a bit had changed. Hey guys, and welcome back to our channel. I'm
Aubrey.
Hold on. Sometimes this hologram doesn't work quite right. But anyways, we are two Americans currently living in Germany and sharing all of our experiences living and traveling throughout Europe. For those of you that are new to our channel, my wife Aubrey and I moved to Germany 2 years ago, but this wasn't our first time in Germany. The first time that I ever came to Germany was in 2014 during a study abroad program in college, or if you speak British English, when I was in university. During this program, I lived with a German family in Bonn before spending some time in Berlin. Because I actually lived with a German family, I saw firsthand the ins and outs of German daily life at that time. But the Germany that I encountered when I returned to live here half a decade later was different in multiple ways. So what differences have I noticed between Germany in 2014 versus Germany today? Well, that is exactly what I am going to talk about today in our video, Blast from the Past, how Germany then and now contrast. So because Aubrey was not with me in 2014 when I first arrived in Germany, it will just be me today taking you on this journey. Plus, some of you may remember that I used to do videos on my own back in 2020, and we are going to start bringing some of those back. So these differences are based mostly on my personal experiences from my time in Bonn 7 years ago and where we live now in the southwestern German state of Rhineland-Pfalz. Therefore, you may have totally different experiences, and I would be really interested to know if your personal experiences are different from mine. So be sure to leave all of those thoughts in the comments below and where you are from. So actually, most of these differences are on the food theme, and the first is based on a memory that I have about talking to my host family about the world famous American classic, the peanut butter and jelly sandwich. They had never had one, so for whatever reason, I decided it was my mission to make them a peanut butter and jelly sandwich. However, one thing I did not expect coming from the land of peanut butter was that peanut butter was kind of hard to come by in Germany. Mind you, the population of Bonn in 2014 was 311,287, which by the way is one thing that really hasn't changed much since then. So we're not talking about a small city where you may have limited resources and a limited choice of grocery items. However, I was only able to finally find some in a special import shop, and I remember it also being extremely expensive compared to what we were able to get it for back home. So if you're waiting for the end of the story about my host family and their PB&J sandwich experience, well, the jar I found was just a tiny little jar of peanut butter, and I think that I just ended up using it to make myself sandwiches to take on day trips because I realized this isn't really a culinary masterpiece that someone necessarily has to have at some point in their lives. But now fast forward to 2021, and I have found that peanut butter is way easier to find in Germany, and not only will you find it, but you may even find the choices of crunchy and creamy or multiple different brands to choose from. Even the price has gotten a little bit more affordable for a jar of peanut butter, but you won't find the large tubs of peanut butter like in the US. Peanut butter still doesn't nearly have the popularity as other spreads like Nutella in Germany. However, Germany does have the second highest consumption rates of peanut butter in Europe, and a USDA report on German peanut butter consumption from 2003, yeah, I look up this kind of stuff in my research for our videos, offered this explanation: peanut butter enjoys some popularity with the younger generation who is exposed to US lifestyle through US shows on German TV. And based on my perceptions and the data, it does seem like the popularity of peanut butter is slowly growing. Slowly. One of the biggest things that Americans miss living in Germany that we ourselves have discussed before: what do you miss most about the United States?
Of course, our families. But
Our families.
other than our families, good Mexican food.
That is a good answer. Of course, this is primarily geographically driven. If you want Turkish, Greek, Italian, or French food, Germany has you covered, and largely because those are so close and their influence has spread over here. But of course, with Mexico being so far away and the lack of Mexicans in Germany, good Mexican food can be quite scarce. In particular, in 2014, I remember Mexican food ingredients were also very hard to come by in German grocery stores, so you couldn't even really make it at home for yourselves if you wanted to. Of course, because of the lack of Hispanic influence, there weren't too many Germans trying to cook Mexican food at home, unlike in the US, where taco nights were actually quite a pretty big family staple. For a really great look at the German versus American perceptions on German food in exactly the time period I am talking about in 2014, you can check out an old YouTube channel, Germany versus USA, and their video, Mexican Food, Germany versus USA, where they discuss this topic a lot further. But again, fast forward to today, and I have found that the Mexican food situation is very different in Germany, primarily in the grocery store sections. Now, when we go grocery shopping, we often find Mexican food sections that even have multiple different brands being offered. Even with the expansion of the Mexican food sections in German grocery stores though, I do unfortunately have to report that one thing Germany hasn't quite gotten correct yet is salsa. Salsa in Germany typically is essentially just sweet, chunky ketchup. So hopefully, in our follow-up video in another 7 years when we look back at the changes from today, the salsa game will be a little bit stronger in Germany. By the way, I am not committing to us being here for another 7 years, but maybe we'll just visit to check on the salsa situation at that time. But I am interested in knowing from our German viewers, how often do you venture into the Mexican food territory these days for your own home cooking? By the way, guys, this video is not sponsored by anybody. So if you're enjoying this video, please go ahead and take a second to hit that like and subscribe buttons and give us a comment letting us know that you enjoy these videos. That would be a huge support to our channel. Everybody knows the famous JFK line, Ich bin ein Berliner. And it has been incorrectly translated as I am a jelly-filled donut. That's because a Berliner is also the name for what we call a jelly-filled donut in the US. Well, that's at least if you are from this part of Germany with the green dots, but this food goes by a whole host of other names depending on where you are from across Germany. But I'm getting off track anyways, because the point of me bringing up jelly-filled donuts is the popularity of donuts in Germany and how it has changed over the years. When I came in 2014, donuts really weren't a thing, but you could find these jelly-filled donuts in most bakeries, or you could find a couple of donuts that resembled more of what we would see in the US that sat out in grocery stores all day long in the bakery sections. Dunkin' Donuts did open up their first store in Germany in Berlin in 1999, and up to 2012, they had grown to just a little over 30 stores throughout the entire country. Donuts just didn't nearly have the same popularity as they did in the US, where for a lot of Americans like us, it was and still is a very popular Saturday morning treat to go to the donut shop and pick out a dozen or so donuts for the family to enjoy that day. Since my first trip over here, I have noticed the donut trend has really started to catch on in Germany. Dunkin' Donuts has now grown to nearly 70 stores across Germany, and in particular, a new German donut brand, Royal Donut, has blown up across Germany and Europe with over 150 locations. Now, whenever we visit almost any German city on the weekend and a new Royal Donut has opened up, we find it with an extremely long line stretching down the street as people wait to get in and get a donut. Still, based on my perception, the donut isn't viewed the same as in America and tend to be more indulgent and decadent types of donuts for an extra special dessert treat over here, but they are growing in much more popularity than they ever had in 2014. When I arrived back home from my study abroad program, I vividly remember telling my friends and family, you're not going to believe it, but Burger King is still huge in Germany. My perception based on my experiences were that Burger King used to be more popular in the US when we were kids, and we even used to have birthday parties there growing up. But since the 90s and early 2000s, there has been a boom of new fast food restaurant brands in the US, and it seems that many people would definitely choose a newer or better one over the BK Lounge in many cases. In fact, after the second quarter of this year, Burger King ranked only number 21 of the most popular dining brands in the US. And by the way, this list does include some restaurants that I would not strictly consider just fast food. So when I came to Germany in 2014 and saw Burger Kings all over the place and saw people constantly going in and out of them, I was kind of shocked it was still so seemingly popular. Now, looking back, this is a little bit of an unfair comparison because at the time in Germany, you basically just had Burger King, McDonald's, Subway, KFC, Pizza Hut, or Starbucks in terms of American fast food, whereas in the US, we have hundreds of different brands, and therefore there actually just wasn't as big of a selection in Germany. Yet, something that has changed in Germany since 2014 that I have noticed is the number of American chains that have started to come to Germany and grow besides just the handful of these few classics I just mentioned in Germany in 2014. Now, you can start finding places like Five Guys that is fairly rapidly expanding its presence in Germany. Domino's became the leading pizza chain in Germany in 2017 after it acquired 170 stores from Germany's then largest pizza chain, Hallo Pizza. There are a couple of Chipotle branches in Frankfurt, and not to mention that you can hardly go to any major city's main square in Europe and not find a Starbucks that has secured a prime location in it and massively expanded their presence here. And to switch it up a little bit from the food topic, but in kind of a way keep it on theme, something that we have touched on in many of our videos and is one of the most shocking things about visiting Europe for Americans is the fact that you either must pay to use many restrooms or tip an attendant that sits out in front of the bathrooms and cleans them periodically. When I first came here in college, I learned the importance of always having change in my pockets in the case that I would need to use the restroom and would have to fork over a few cents. I remember it felt like everywhere that I went, I had to pay for toilets, with the exceptions being if we paid for entry to something like a museum in which I could use the bathroom for free. And this is something that I want you all to weigh in on because I feel like this has changed, but my perception could just be a little bit skewed. Now, I have no data to support this actually is the case, but I do feel like there are now much fewer places where I have to pay to use the restroom than what it used to be. There are still the staple places where you must pay, like Santa Fe toilets on the Autobahn rest stops or in most shopping malls, but overall, I find it is not as hard to find free bathrooms as it was in 2014. For example, in 2018, Starbucks announced Starbucks bathrooms will now be open to all, including people who have not made purchases, following the controversial arrest of two black men who tried to use the restroom at a Philadelphia location. And with their prevalence in Germany, as I just mentioned, there are now hundreds of free restrooms all over the place. So are bathrooms becoming more available for free now? Is it because of further globalization and the idea of free toilets is spreading to Germany? Or because of things like what happened at Starbucks? Or am I just perceiving it this way because now that I live here, when I travel to other parts of Germany, I know better the secrets to finding the free bathrooms? So let me know in the comments, do you see this as a trend that has been changing over time to more free bathrooms in Germany as well? Or do you come across them just as much as you did in the past? So those are just a few of the things that I have noticed has changed in Germany since I was first here in 2014, based mostly on my perceptions. So now it's time to let me know in the comments what you have noticed has changed in Germany in the last decade or so, or since you first arrived in Germany. To see who made it this far in the video, Spargel season or Pfifferlinge season? Which one do you prefer? Thanks so much for watching this video, guys. Be sure to hit that like and subscribe button, and we will see you in our next video.
Cheers.
So be sure to leave all of those thoughts in the comments below. Hold on, we have a package delivered. Okay, package has been acquired. We're ready to get going again. This list, what's happening? I remember it felt like everywhere that I went that I remember it felt like everywhere that I went that I had